Hey everyone, welcome back. Today, we're going to be taking a deep dive into something pretty important,
Yeah,
cybersecurity workforce requirements, but more specifically within U.S. government contracts.
yeah, this will be a good one.
We're going to be looking at a proposed rule here that's a joint effort
Ah,
from the Department of Defense,
okay.
General Services Administration,
Mm.
and NASA.
Wow.
And trust me, this is going to be a big one for anybody involved in government IT
Yeah,
or cybersecurity.
this is really going to change things up.
Yeah, it really is.
So this proposed rule, right?
Yeah.
What we're looking at here
Right.
is a direct implementation of Executive Order 13870,
Good.
which is America's cybersecurity workforce. Straight from the White House?
Wow. So this is coming right from the top.
It is, yeah. And this order actually calls for using something called the NICE framework. Have you heard of this?
I have heard of the NICE framework.
Good, good.
I know it's the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education.
That's right, yeah.
So is this the White House saying, hey, we need to standardize this? We need to have like a universal language for cybersecurity jobs?
That's exactly right. No more confusion about what cybersecurity analyst really means
Yeah.
across different agencies
Yeah.
and contracts.
Yeah.
It's all going to be the same.
Makes sense. Yeah. Break down those silos.
Yeah, get rid of those silos, exactly. And you know what? This proposed rule goes even further.
Oh, really?
It does. It adds
Yeah.
formal definitions
Okay.
for cybersecurity in the NICE workforce framework right into the Federal Acquisition Regulation.
Oh, the FR, the infamous FAR.
It's the FAR.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
Anybody who's ever worked on government contracts knows that the R can be a real pain.
It can be.
So this is a pretty good deal. Then they're codifying this into law.
They are. Yeah, it's a legal requirement.
So it's not just a suggestion anymore.
Yeah.
It's like you have to do this.
That's right. The government is saying that this is the new gold standard
Okay.
for cybersecurity workforce requirements.
So wait, are we talking about all contracts or just like the big ones?
All contracts,
All
if
contracts?
it involves IT or cybersecurity support services,
Wow.
even the small ones.
Okay, so even the little contracts, not just these
Yeah.
huge multi-million-dollar deals.
That's right. That's right.
Our source material even says
Yeah.
that it affects any contract involving IT and cybersecurity support services.
Yeah.
Even the small ones, that's interesting.
It is, and it gets broader.
Oh, no.
It does. So hold on tight because FR 12.202 extends this to commercial products and services too,
Oh, wow.
which includes CO test items.
CO test, commercial, off the shelf, so even like buying software
Right, exactly.
could be affected by this.
That could be, yeah.
Wow, so this is a really broad rule.
It is.
I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, it's a big one.
So I'm trying to wrap my head around how the NICE framework actually plays out in the real world of government contracting.
Right.
Our source material goes into a lot of detail on this. So.
Yeah, so let's say you're an agency that wants to buy new cybersecurity software.
Okay.
With this proposed rule, your acquisition plan
Mm-hmm.
must include
Okay.
cybersecurity workforce requirements that are aligned with the NICE framework.
So no more vague statements about cybersecurity experience.
Right, exactly.
You've got to really define it.
You're going to break
You
it
could
down.
say, this NICE framework, whatever.
That's right. You've got to specify the roles and the skills that you need.
Okay, so it sounds like this doesn't just stop at the acquisition.
Nope, it does not.
This goes through the whole process.
The whole contracting process.
There's a ripple effect.
Yeah, it's all got to be aligned with the NICE framework.
So the requirements, documents,
Yes.
the offers you receive,
Uh-huh.
the quotes,
Yeah,
even the deliverables that contractors submit.
all of it.
Wow, they are really serious about this.
They are. This level of detail is pretty unprecedented.
Okay, so I get that the government is making a big push for standardization,
Yes.
but I can't help but think about the contractors themselves.
Right.
Especially the smaller businesses.
Yeah, it's a valid concern.
To adapt to all this, this could be a nightmare for them.
It could be, yeah.
Our source material actually acknowledges this,
Uh-huh.
that it will have a significant impact.
Especially on small businesses.
Yeah.
They estimate that over 2,700 entities
Wow.
will need to adapt to this.
And I think they said that over 1,700 of those are small businesses.
Yeah, that's right. That's a huge chunk of the contracting community.
That's a lot of companies.
It is. It
That
is.
are going to have to figure this all out.
Yeah, they're going to have to scramble.
Our source also mentions a 20-hour familiarization time,
Right.
which, 20 hours doesn't sound terrible.
That's just to understand the framework itself.
Right.
It's not the implementation process.
But even still, Is 20 hours really going to be enough
That's a good point.
for a small business to fully understand this and revamp their processes?
Yeah, there's a lot more to it.
I have my doubts.
Yeah.
But,
Okay.
to be fair, the source material does acknowledge this potential burden on small businesses.
It does.
They specifically mention something called an initial regulatory flexibility analysis.
An IRFA.
An IRFA.
Yeah.
Can you break that down for me a little bit?
So an IRFA is basically the government's way of gauging the impact
Okay.
of new regulations on small businesses.
Okay.
They want to make sure they're not creating too much of a burden.
So like a safeguard.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
They're using it to identify potential problems and figure out how to lessen the impact on these smaller contractors.
Okay, so it sounds like while they are definitely shaking things up, they
Yeah.
are at least being mindful
They are.
the impact this is going to have,
Yeah, they're trying to be.
especially on these smaller businesses.
And they don't want to crush them.
So with all this focus on the NICE framework
Yeah.
and, potential impacts and benefits,
Yeah.
where does this really leave us?
That's a great question.
Where are we going with all of this?
And it leads to some even bigger questions about the future of cybersecurity.
Okay.
That we're going to dive into in part 2 of this deep dive.
Oh, a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Stay tuned.
All right, we'll be back. Okay, so we're back, and we're picking up right where we left off, talking about the NICE framework and specifically the potential impact on smaller businesses.
Yeah, that 20-hour familiarization time.
Yeah, I mean, even if that's enough time to really understand the framework,
Uh-huh.
I feel like there's so much more.
Yeah, there's a whole iceberg under there.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. How many small businesses really have the resources to completely overhaul their processes to align with all this?
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you've got to think about like training,
Yeah.
potentially certifications.
All that stuff can get really expensive.
It can.
So we're talking about potential cost barriers here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It could be a real burden.
But is there also a risk that this levels the playing field a little too much?
How do you mean?
Like, won't this make it harder for the smaller businesses to compete with those big cybersecurity firms?
Like the ones that already have all the resources.
The ones that can just adapt really quickly.
Yeah, they definitely have an advantage.
Yeah, because they have those dedicated HR departments and all those training budgets.
Uh-huh.
But you know what? There might be a silver lining here for smaller businesses.
Oh, really? What's that?
Well, instead of trying to be a jack of all trades,
Right.
they could actually use this as an opportunity to specialize.
To become a master of one specific thing?
Exactly, like maybe a specific NICE framework domain.
So instead of competing with these giant companies,
Right.
they're carving out their own little niche.
Exactly, and then they become the go-to experts for that.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. They could really stand out.
Yeah, highlight that specific expertise and get those really tailored contracts.
Yeah, so instead of seeing this as a negative thing, it's
Yeah.
almost like they can turn it into a positive.
You got to play smart, right?
Exactly.
Leverage the change.
But okay, so there are some potential upsides.
Yeah.
There are some potential downsides.
Right.
But I think the biggest question in my mind is, what about innovation?
Good question.
Will all this standardization stifle creativity?
Yeah, I mean, will it prevent those like outside the box solutions that we need in cybersecurity?
Because a lot of times we need to think outside the box.
Absolutely. It's a tightrope walk.
Yeah.
You want the standards and the qualifications to elevate the workforce, but you don't want to create a cookie cutter approach.
Right. You don't want to stifle creativity.
Exactly.
Because things are constantly changing.
All the time.
What's a threat today might be completely different tomorrow.
That's right. And it's not just about responding to threats. It's also about anticipating new ones.
Right. And that takes a lot of creative problem solving.
Exactly.
And if we're too focused on checking boxes,
Yeah, meeting those requirements.
are we going to be able to keep up?
It's a worry.
I mean, are we setting ourselves up for failure here?
Well, not necessarily. Remember, this is still a proposed rule.
Okay,
They're looking for feedback.
so there's still time to adjust.
Absolutely. They even say they're open to figuring out how to address these concerns.
So we're not doomed yet.
Not yet.
We can still find that balance
Hopefully.
between standardization and innovation.
We need both.
Right. We need a skilled and standardized workforce, but we need to maintain that innovation as well.
That's the key.
And this is where I think the contracting community, and especially the smaller businesses, need to really step up and make their voices heard.
Yeah. This is their chance to make a difference.
Because this is going to affect everyone.
Absolutely.
Okay, so maybe it's not all doom and gloom.
Right.
There are some challenges,
Uh-huh.
but there are also some opportunities.
For those who are ready to adapt and
Exactly.
be proactive.
But I feel like we're still just scratching the surface.
Yeah, we are.
This whole a framework thing has some major ripple effects that go beyond just the contracting process.
100%. We've talked about the impact on contractors,
Hmm.
but what about the bigger picture?
Exactly. What about the industry as a whole?
What about national security?
What about you, the listener?
That's a perfect segue,
Ooh, I love a good segue.
because in part 3 of this deep dive, we're going to zoom out
Okay.
and explore the long-term implications of this push for a standardized cybersecurity workforce.
All right, I am ready. Let's do it. Welcome back for the final part of this deep dive, and I really want to kind of zoom out here and look at the bigger picture.
Yeah, the long view.
Yeah, so we've talked about the potential benefits, we've talked about the challenges, but the real question is, what kind of long-term impact will this have on cybersecurity as a whole?
Yeah, is this going to work? Is the government's gamble going to pay off?
I mean, will this actually lead to a more robust and skilled cybersecurity workforce?
Well, you know, it's like most things, it's a double-edged sword.
Okay, how so?
Well, on one hand, having that standardized framework like NICE could really raise the bar. You know, everybody's speaking the same language.
Yeah, common language, clear expectations.
Everybody's working from the same playbook.
Yeah.
That should lead to better communication.
Right, and probably easier recruitment, too.
And overall, just a more skilled workforce.
So it's kind of like a universal certification, right?
In a way, yeah.
Like, you're right, employers would know exactly what skills somebody has,
Uh-huh.
and individuals would have a really clear roadmap for career progression.
Yep. But, you know, there is the other side of that coin.
What's that?
What happens to innovation
Ooh, good point.
in a highly standardized environment?
Yeah, are we going to get stuck in a rut just focusing on, checking those boxes?
Right, meeting requirements.
Instead of thinking outside the box and coming up with new solutions?
That's the risk.
Yeah, and that's what worries me, because cybersecurity is constantly evolving.
It is. What's cutting edge today?
Right. Could be obsolete tomorrow.
And we need people who can adapt
And think creatively.
and come up with new solutions to stay ahead of the game.
So is that it then? Are we going to fall behind in the cybersecurity arms race?
Well, not necessarily. It comes back to balance again.
Okay.
You need that standardization to make sure everybody's on the same page.
To create that baseline level of competency, right?
Exactly.
But then we also need to make sure we're encouraging that creative problem solving as well.
Absolutely. So finding that sweet spot, that equilibrium between standardization and innovation, that's the real challenge.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the takeaway for our listeners? What should they be thinking about as this whole thing moves forward?
Well, I think it's a wake-up call to everybody in this industry.
Yeah.
The government is making it very clear cybersecurity is a top priority.
Uh-huh.
And they're raising the bar for everyone.
So no matter who you are,
Doesn't matter if you're a huge corporation or a small business.
you need to be ready to adapt.
Yeah. And it's not just about adapting. It's about getting involved.
Engage in the conversation.
Provide feedback.
Help shape this thing as it moves forward.
It affects everybody.
So the future of cybersecurity is in our hands.
It really is.
That's a great point to end on. So for everyone listening out there, stay informed.
Stay engaged.
And most importantly, keep diving deep.